Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I figured we were due for a good catch up of everything that I have been knitting the past 3 months. So I have a few finished objects and I'll also catch you up on what I'm currently working on. All of my finished objects are things that I have made videos about, so I'm not going to go into great detail if you've already seen some of my content. But I'll just run through them, recap what I made, and kind of the highlights about each project. Starting with what I'm wearing, which is the Burgos vest by Rosa Pomar. I'm wearing it over this like white button down. I also styled it over a white t-shirt, and I want to get a little bit more creative about styling this one. But for now, it just really works over like a white plain shirt, so that's how I've been styling it. I've made a couple videos about it. I made one where I started it and kind of came up with the idea to make this as a scrap and stash busting project. So everything that I used in this was either scraps or stuff that I had in my stash. And then I also made a video of me finishing it. So if you want to see the like 2-part process of working on this, it actually took me a little bit of time. It took me longer than I expected, and that's probably just because I really spent a lot of time on the details and I redid a lot of things. And you know what? There's actually one thing that I still want to redo because yes, I am a perfectionist, but that is the buttons. I love the buttons that I chose. These are from La Mercerie. They're just like silver metallic buttons. And the one thing that I would like to change is where they're placed horizontally on the button band, because if you see, there's some like gapping that's happening along the button band. So I would like to move the buttons over closer to the edge of the button band. You can see I kind of put them more towards the inner edge, and I would like them towards the outer edge. So that's something that I'm going to do at some point, but right now it's obviously still wearable. I knit the size 2, which is a 37 3/4 inch chest. That's a little bit of positive ease, kind of depending on the day, but I would say that's like 1, maybe 1.5 inches of positive ease. And because this is already a bit of an oversized fit, the armholes are quite deep. So because of that, I don't think I would want to go up another size. So I think I chose the right size. It's very comfortable. I could even see myself maybe going down a size, but I do like the slightly oversized fit, especially because this is a worsted weight, or it's really an Aran. I use 2 strands of fingering weight, except for the Rowan felted tweed that I used that was sport weight, but I held 2 strands of everything together with a strand of mohair. I used some Knit Picks Aloft that I had in my stash. And I will say that it's very hairy. I'm not the biggest fan of mohair in general, and I don't love the Knit Picks mohair. So I'm not going to be repurchasing it probably, but it got the job done. It's not itchy because I always wear it over something, so it's totally fine to wear, but I do sometimes find just like little pieces of the mohair on things or like stuck on my face or something. So I find it a little bit annoying, but I was happy to use it up in a project that I really like. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about all of these colors together, and I like it a lot. I've worn it quite a bit. I get compliments on it when I wear it out. So this is definitely a project that I really like from this year. I'm glad I spent the time working on it. I also really liked the pattern. This was my first Rosa Pomar pattern, and I will definitely be knitting more of her patterns. She has a couple other vest patterns that I would love to knit because I think I'm a vest girly now. I am super late to the trend, but yeah, I think I like vests now. Another finished object from the past few months is this cotton t-shirt. This is what I call my Hunger Games top, because if you watch my channel, you might have seen that I knit this top while I reread all of the Hunger Games books and while I rewatched the movies. It was a months-long undertaking. It was so much fun. I would love to do another literary or movie-inspired knit. For this one, I just knit stripes in the colors of the books, and it was a lot of fun, but I would like to do something that's maybe inspired by like a knitwear piece from a book or from a movie, or something a little bit closer to like recreating something. I just made a basic striped tee out of cotton and cotton linen blends. It is just a basic contiguous sleeve top down. This is the Eros pattern by Petite Knit, which I have made once before, so I had it in my library and knew that it worked well with stripes. I used a mix of Cascade Yarn socks and Sandnes Garn 10 Lena, which are all about fingering weight. I knit 6 round stripes for the Cascade yarn, but for the Sandnes Garn, I knit 7 round stripes because it was just a little bit thinner. And so I felt like the stripes matched in width better if I did that. And then I changed the pattern to folded hems because I thought that looked better in this yarn. And I really like how this turned out. I hope this is the first of many literary inspired knits, but it did take me a long time, and as a result the video is like a feature-length film. Thank you for watching it if you did. I got a lot of positive feedback on it from those who did sit through the entire video, and I really appreciate that. Next up is the Rib Lace Raglan by James and Watts. This is another one that I made a video about alongside the Burgos vest, and I feel like I have a lot to say on this. If you want to know everything, you can just watch that video, but yeah, I ultimately love it. I love the garment, and it was super fun to knit. I love James and Watts patterns. I haven't experimented with wearing it like over something else, so maybe that's another way that I should try wearing it. But yeah, I've just worn it as a t-shirt so far, and I do really like it worn that way. The yarn is from Juniper Moon Farm. It is the Summer Solstice yarn, and it is a tweed, and I really like the way that it looks. It's a little bit stiff to work with, but it does soften up a bit as you wash it and wear it. I knit the size medium, which is the 43¼ inch bust, which gave me about 5½ inches of positive ease, which is not quite as oversized of a look as I wanted. It fits me perfectly. It's just, yeah, I wanted a little bit more oversized fit than that. Although I think it worked out because the raglan yoke is quite deep in this pattern, and the sleeves are also like a bit on the wider size just compared to other raglans that I've knit, and so they do flare a little bit. So I think in the end I ended up knitting the size that fits me perfectly, and maybe if I went up a size I would be unhappy with the fit. So hopefully that helps you kind of figure out what size you might want to cast on, because this is how it looks on me with 5½ inches of positive ease. I also added about 2¼ inches of length to the body, and despite having an extra 115 yards more than the estimated yardage, I almost ran out of yarn. I had to unravel my swatch, and it was like down to the inch. Another note on that is that the schematic does have varying body lengths. So I don't think I realized that when I was buying my yarn. I hadn't purchased my pattern yet, which was a mistake. I should have bought the pattern and then bought the yarn. So I didn't look at the schematic, and I just assumed that all of the sizes had the same length. Additionally, the pattern page does show a full length sweater. There's different versions. There's a cropped, there's a full length, there's one with full length sleeves, there's the short sleeve version. So there's a lot of different versions, and I think I honestly just could have done a better job realizing how much yarn I needed. But I didn't run out of yarn. I was able to get the length that I wanted from it, but I also didn't add anything to the sleeves so that I could make it work. So I would say if you are going to knit this, just like take an extra look at the yardage and at what you're actually wanting to make, just so you don't have to like be in the situation I was, where I was running out of yarn and I wasn't sure if it warranted like buying another skein. And it ultimately worked out. There were also some finishing things that I changed. So before I bound off, I knit around because I didn't like how the yarn overs were working out with a bind off if I just bound off straight from the pattern. And I also added an I-cord bind off to the neck, but I finished everything else with just a regular knit bind off. So that's what I did. I think it looks quite nice. Nothing like flares out weirdly, except that the sleeves do like flutter a little bit when I'm wearing it, but I think that's cute. And yeah, I didn't add anything to the sleeves because I didn't have the yarn, so I might have otherwise, just like a couple of rounds or maybe an inch or so, but because the raglan is so deep, I don't find that it looks weird. The last two FOs are socks that I don't have with me because I've worn them both recently, but I will put up photos. The first is this gradient pair that I knit using the Focus Friend app. If you watch the channel, you may have seen that. I posted this video and then about a week later, Hank Green girl bossed too close to the sun, but I still really like my socks and I think they turned out nice. I knit these toe up using the Fleegle heel. I knit this out of the Schopelwohl Zauberball in the colorway 2134, and I knit my socks 60 stitches, and I tried to match them up as best as I could, and I feel like it turned out pretty well, so I'm quite happy with that. And after I finished those, I decided to start experimenting with a Fleegle heel knit cuff down because I had only knit the Fleegle heel toe up. That's what the pattern calls for. And there is a heel that you can knit cuff down that is close to the Fleegle heel. It's called the strong heel. The strong heel actually came before the Fleegle heel. It is not quite the same though. The strong heel fits you better if you have flatter feet, and the Fleegle heel fits you better if you have higher arches. So I wanted to try a cuff down version of the Fleegle heel, but reversed. Instead of the strong heel, which is what you'll get if you knit the Fleegle heel, but just cuff down. Does that make sense? So that's what I did. I've been working on the cuff down or the reverse Fleegle heel pattern, and I made these socks to test out the pattern, and then I also have been testing it with other people. If you have been testing it for me, thank you so much. If you reached out and I have not responded, I'm so sorry. I got so many responses about this test. I was definitely not expecting that, especially because this will be a free pattern in the spirit of the original Fleegle heel, which is a free pattern. I just wasn't expecting to get so many people who wanted to test. So it's been going great. I've gotten a lot of really good feedback to make this pattern better, and I'm very excited to release it hopefully soon. You just never know how long these things are going to take. I feel like they always take longer than you think they will. So just know I'm working on it, and I will be releasing it. But as far as the socks that I knit to test the pattern, I again used a Zauberball. This one is the sport weight one, so it's the Stark 6, and it's in the colorway 2516, and I knit my socks on 48 stitches, and I really like the way these fit. I'm just a big fan of the Fleegle heel. I like knitting my socks cuff down, or at least having the option to do either cuff down or toe up. And not to say that this heel is going to be a perfect fit for everyone, because I don't think that exists, but if you like the fit of the Fleegle heel, or if you like the fit of the heel flap and gusset, or you just have slightly higher arches, I would say give it a go. You could either try the Fleegle heel that is already out there, or wait a bit, and I will be publishing the cuff down version. Okay, moving on to whips. I have 3 projects that I'm currently working on, and the first is one that I cannot wait to show you. This is my hand spun sweater out of the yarn that I spun during Tour de Fleece. So here's how the yarn is knitting up. I love it. Here's the back. I think it's so interesting, and I just love every row seeing how the yarn is knitting up and what color is coming next. So this is one full skein. I just finished the skein up. I'm like in the middle of a row, so I need to wind up the next one and attach it. But yeah, I think this is so cool. It's totally not something that I would have like picked out probably. But the fact that this is like yarn that I made and colors that I put together, but I didn't really know, you know, how it's all going to work out. So just to see the way that it's turning out is really cool. And yeah, I've talked a lot about this yarn on my channel, so if you want to know all the specifics about the fiber that I used and how I combined it all, I have my Ravelry project page, and then I also have all of my Tour de Fleece vlogs where I go into detail, because those are the vlogs where I was like putting it all together and figuring out what I wanted to do. But I'll just run through the basics of how I created the yarn. I did a combo spin, so I combined, I think, 6 different braids. Yes, that's right. So I used 6 braids, but I used 5 colors. So 2 of the braids were the same colorway by Hello Yarn. And I just used a blend of fibers from different yarn dyers. There is Falkland Merino, Cormo, South American wool, and Polwarth in here. And I think they combined to create a really nice yarn. It's very soft, but it has some structure to it. And yeah, I've never combined this many fibers together into one yarn, and I feel like it really turned out. I'm loving the way that it's knitting up. And in one of my Tour de Fleece vlogs, I do talk about how I figured out if I had enough fiber to knit this sweater and figure out like what I wanted to spin my singles at in order to get applied yarn that would work for this particular pattern, which I'll talk about. I am knitting the Port Cardigan by Ozetta. It is a top-down crew neck, drop shoulder cardigan, all stockinette except for the rib on the edges of the armholes. It's a DK weight pattern, and so I spun for a DK weight yarn, but I am altering the gauge ever so slightly. I am about, I think, 1/4 inch off of my stitch gauge, and then because of that, I'm about half a row off on my row gauge. So I'm just knitting the size that makes sense for my stitch gauge that's going to give me the dimensions that I want. And then because my row gauge is off, I am doing the math with each section and adding in however many rows I need to get the right length. And that's just because I had a hard time getting gauge for this pattern. It calls for a 4.5 millimeter or a US 7. And I had to go down to a 3.5 millimeter US 4. And I'm still a little bit off on my gauge, but I didn't want to go down anymore. I didn't want to knit this even tighter because I really liked this gauge that I was getting. Plus, I was having that issue where my stitch gauge was off, but my row gauge was perfect. So I decided to like meet in the middle and have my stitch gauge just be a little bit off and my row gauge just be a little bit off, instead of having one be spot on and one be super off. So I'm knitting the size medium, which is going to give me 45 inches at the bust with my slightly larger gauge. And that's about 7 inches of positive ease for me. So I think that's going to be the right fit. It's a cardigan, so I'm going to be wearing it over something most of the time. And I like this style with some more ease. I didn't want like a super close cropped cardigan. I wanted some more room. So yeah, I hope that that is what this gives me. Also, I wanted to point out that this is using the European shoulder, which means that as you wear it, the shoulders are made up partially of the front. So you can see this part here is knit from the front, but it lays over your shoulder and it just gives it a couple of extra inches. And that's just a method of shaping the shoulder, and I think it looks really cool. I definitely want to try it again. I I think this is my first time doing it, but I know a lot of the like Scandinavian pattern designers use it a lot. I just wanted to point out because I think it's kind of cool. My next whip also uses some hand spun. This is the Tessellated Vest by Andrew Mallory. So here is how it's coming along. If you have followed my Whip Wednesdays, which is something I'm doing on shorts every other Wednesday, then you'll have seen my slow progress on this. This is a mosaic knit stitch pattern, so it takes a while to work on, but it is quite beautiful. My color changing yarn is my hand spun. This is from a braid of Nest Fiber. It's one from, I think, last winter, so it's from a while ago, but I loved the colors in this and I knew that I wanted to use it in something like this. I spun this yarn as a fractal, which is where you take one half of your braid and you spin that half end to end, and then you take the other half and you split it up into however many pieces you want. I think I did 4 for this one. And then you ply the 2 halves together. So what you get is one ply with long color repeats and then another ply with short color repeats. And there's points where the 2 plies will match up. So like in this case, you can see this big chunk of red, and then you can see like some blue here and here. But then you also get these sections where there are 2 plies of different colors. It's quite a fun way to spin, and it can create some really interesting yarn. In retrospect, I kind of wish that I chain plied this instead of fractal spinning it, because I wanted more of a color changing effect, and I think there are large parts of this where it's more barber pulled than I wish it was. I feel like it might be a little bit easier to see in person, but I'm just experimenting, and I definitely don't dislike the way this looks. I think it looks really cool. I'm quite happy with it. But yeah, something to note for future color changing yarn. Oh, I just realized my needle completely came out of these stitches. So this pattern is knit from the bottom up, and I've just been working around and around, but I just split for the underarms. And I'm following the pattern so far. It has you work 10 inches before you split for the underarms. And so now I'm working on the front back and forth. I debated adding some length before splitting for the underarms because this does look a little bit short. It is a cropped pattern. And I would say I don't usually add length to Andrea Mallory's patterns because I am pretty short with a shorter torso, so I generally find that the cropped length is like just right at my hips. And I think with a vest especially, it being a little bit more cropped works because I'm going to be wearing it over other shirts or dresses or however I'm going to style it. So I don't think it's going to be a problem, but yeah, I did take a few minutes to assess the length before splitting for the underarms. I do also plan to try it on just to check things before I keep going. And I want to make a short about trying on bottom up knits because I've heard people say that you can't try them on as you go. And I just want to like show that you can. It just is a little bit different from top down. For my main color, I'm using this beautiful green. This is from Imperial Yarn Mackenzie in the color Moss. And I got 5 skeins of this from a D-stash. This is a fingering weight yarn, so I am modifying the pattern to be in fingering weight instead of sport weight. I went up a couple needle sizes and my gauge is still a little bit smaller than the pattern. But I am knitting the 3rd size, and that's going to give me a 38.5-inch bust. So that's just a few inches of positive ease. I didn't want to go oversized, but I did debate going up one more size, and I ended up just casting on the 3rd size. And again, with my gauge being a little bit off, that's going to be 38.5 inches. I think it's gonna be the right size. And then I'm holding 2 strands of my mohair together. This is Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colorway Dark Mustard, which is such a gorgeous color with the green. And I am modifying it to include 2 strands. I knit a couple gauge swatches, one with a single strand, one with 2 strands, and just really liked the way the 2 strands looked. My last whip is also an Andrew Mallory pattern. This is my Jaunty, and it's almost halfway done. I am working from 3 skeins of Fiber Spates Cumulus in the colorway Sfagnales, which is just the best color on earth. I bought this because I wanted to try out brushed alpaca as an alternative to mohair. And now that I know that I really, really like this, it's so soft. It doesn't itch me. It's not as like fluffy and hairy as some mohairs can be. So now that I know I really like this, I'm excited to use it in other projects that I've kind of avoided because I don't love working with mohair. I don't love wearing mohair, but I do love the way mohair looks. So this was a very exciting discovery. But I bought 3 skeins of it from my local yarn store, and I was just waiting to find the right project for it, or I was thinking about maybe buying some more to knit a sweater out of it. But then Andrew Mallory came out with the Jaunty, and it just looked like fun. I just really wanted a scarf out of this color. And I was thinking about making a shallow triangle scarf out of this yarn anyway, but I kind of didn't just want to make the garter stitch Sophie scarf that, you know, everyone has made. I kind of just wanted something a little bit more interesting to knit. So this is half fisherman's rib, and so far it has been very fun to work up. I wasn't sure if the fluffiness was going to like cause me any issues or just be horrendous to knit with, but it's been really fun, and I love the way the texture looks. And I'm knitting this on a 2.75 millimeter needle. And as I mentioned, I'm just about halfway, so I am almost halfway through my 2nd skein, and then I have my 3rd skein here. So once you get to about half of your yarn, you then start decreasing. Up to this point, we've just been increasing and creating this giant triangle. So I think it's going to be a good size. It's not going to be a giant scarf, but it's also not a tiny scarf, but it'll still be big enough to keep me warm, which is definitely the goal. So I think it's going to look so great. And I kind of wish that I would have used this color in my tessellated instead of the gold. Like, I keep seeing these 2 projects together, and I just love all of these colors together. So I might have to plan another project where I combine these colors, but I am happy with this. Like, I think this was the more classic option, and I think it's really pretty. I just love this color. This is like my favorite color. I hope you're having a nice November wherever you're at, whatever the weather is like where you are. I can't believe the year is almost over. I think we're gonna blink and then it's gonna be 2026. But I do have some content planned. This is always a time when life really ramps up for me and I start getting very busy. So no promises about anything, but I am lightly thinking about Vlogmas. Definitely not an everyday type of situation, and probably more knitting than life focused, but I do think it would be fun to do some like maybe some themed Vlogmases or something. I need to get that figured out and planned very soon because it's coming up. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.